Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unpacking a totally fascinating and honestly incredibly sarcastic piece of writing today from the Dallas Bureau, written by the brilliantly named Grok Tinfoil Hat. So, what we're looking at is a highly satirical investigation into the JFK assassination theories. I mean, we all know the historical event, right? But this source material takes a wildly different approach. It basically examines the whole Dealey Plaza cottage industry not as serious history, but as an exercise in sheer absurdity. Now, looking at the source's opening premise, it starts out with this almost aggressively straightforward statement. Let's be honest, Lee Harvey Oswald did it. When you read that, you're expecting a dry, standard historical breakdown, right? It has this serious, almost academic gravitas to it, firmly stating what most conventional history books conclude. But our author is actually setting up this deadpan contrast specifically to pull a rug out from under us in the very next breath. Because, as you can see, the full thought continues while riding a unicycle, or something. The ultimate punchline of our source's entire premise is that the official story is just so painfully boring, it actually makes people want to assassinate the narrative itself. The author argues that reality simply doesn't give us the cinematic flair that we as a society really crave. Section 1. The official boring story. Let's move to this and see exactly how it builds. So, why did society start inventing these wilder theories in the first place? Well, to truly understand the conspiracies, we first have to understand the author's critique of the established facts and why those facts left such a massive gaping hole in the American psyche. According to our text, the official story is fundamentally mundane. It essentially boils down to, quote, some loser with a cheap rifle and too much free time. And, human nature just rebels against that. We want a mastermind. Because the mundane truth is deeply unsatisfying. Things like the magic bullet theories respond simply to fill the void. From here, our source actually decides to rank the alternative reasons JFK was killed, specifically by, and I absolutely love this metric, how much they will make your uncle scream at Thanksgiving. Section 2. The Mob and the Fed. And this brings us to the first thematic bucket of conspiracies. We're exploring the quasi-historical but totally absurd geopolitical claims. The theories that sound just plausible enough if you squint, but totally fall apart when our author applies a little bit of satirical logic to them. And this brilliantly illustrates how the source mocks the Mafia theory. The setup is that Bobby Kennedy was cracking down on organized crime like it owed him money. So, the mob, being reasonable businessmen, formulates this master plan. Hey, let's kill the popular brother so the annoying one, the one actively coming after us, becomes president. The author just points out the sheer logical failure of this classic mob move. Oh, and Jack Ruby? The author dismisses him not as a mob hitman, but just a very emotional nightclub owner who loved his country and, just happened to know every single gangster in Chicago. Next up is the Federal Reserve theory, mapped out perfectly right here. The boring reality is that Kennedy signed Executive Order 111110 dealing with silver certificates. The extreme conspiracy reaction? Well, the source jokes that bankers hate competition way more than they hate interest rates. So, instead of standard Federal Reserve operations, they opted for extreme liquidity removal. And that grassy knoll sniper? Just a very dedicated economist with excellent aim. It perfectly satirizes how complex fiscal policy gets twisted into blockbuster assassination plots. Section 3. Hair, Heartbreak, and Betrayal. Now, we transition away from geopolitics into the more personal and, frankly, incredibly ridiculous theories. I want us to maintain a completely serious tone about these following historical facts, because the author presents them with absolute deadpan commitment. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer absurdity of theory number 1. The author introduces the BIC, the Bald Industrial Complex. Picture it. It's 1963. Other men are losing their hair to bridal cream in despair, but JFK had that legendary, windproof PT boat captain hair. The source posits that this shadowy cabal looked at him and said, "Not on our watch." The supposed evidence? The author notes that every single president after him looked like they styled their hair with a lawnmower. Then we have the Jackie theory. According to the source, she was just tired of the affairs, with Marilyn Monroe songs playing on loop in her head. So she took matters into her own hands. This theory claims she used that famous pink suit as tactical camouflage, waved at the crowd right before the shots because she perfectly knew the timing, and then calmly climbed onto the trunk of a moving limo like an absolute boss. The author basically leaves it up to us. Is this icon behavior or a calculated escape? Section 4. Sci-Fi Assassins. From hair and heartbreak, we escalate into pure science fiction. This brings us into the most unhinged territory of the Dealey Plaza cottage industry.
If the previous theories were a stretch, these next ones require you to leave orbit entirely. Take the alien theory, for example. The logic goes JFK wanted to go to the moon. The aliens already lived there, obviously, so they sent a message to stay in your lane, pretty boy. That magic bullet? Actually an alien probe that shapeshifted into evidence. According to the source's highly scientific metric, this theory is endorsed by exactly 0% of historians and 100% of the tinfoil sombrero demographic.
And here's the confusing timeline of the author's personal favorite theory: time travelers. So, a guy departs from the year 2026 to stop the event, but arrives in 1963, a day late. Or maybe he arrived exactly on time to cause it? As the author admits, time travel rules are very confusing. But the real clincher in this theory is that the magic bullet supposedly had "Made in China, 2057" stamped right on it. It's a wonderful poke at how futuristic conspiracies completely tie themselves in narrative knots. Section 5. Why we love conspiracies. Let's take a step back from the time travelers and alien probes for a second to ask, why do we keep going back to Dealey Plaza time and time again? The source wraps up this absurdly long list of culprits with some final satirical conclusions. Maybe America just simply couldn't handle that much charisma in one single convertible. Or perhaps my absolute favorite alternate motive, a jelly donut baker took the phrase "Ich bin ein Berliner" entirely too literally and sought revenge. By presenting these obviously fake motives alongside the others, the author basically equates the complex conspiracy theories with total cartoon logic. So the crucial point is 0. That is the exact number of podcasts, books, or Oliver Stone movies that the boring truth sells. The reality of a loser with a cheap rifle and too much free time just doesn't move product. The conspiracies, however, keep giving us endless documentaries and entertainment. We don't necessarily believe them because they make sense. We believe them because the truth is just too plain for the big screen. Our author finishes up by thanking the, quote, shadowy cabal for their impeccable cover-up game. It's kind of the ultimate satirical bow. And they leave us with this lingering, wonderfully sarcastic final thought. If you see Oswald up there, ask him about the second shooter. We're all still waiting. It perfectly encapsulates our endless, almost comical obsession with finding a deeper truth where there might just be none. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.